Chris, how were you doing about, I don't know, about 3:30 Eastern time on Saturday?
To be completely honest with you, um, I had two scenarios of this football game, and unfortunately, the one that I didn't want was the one that took place Saturday. Uh, but I mean, I'm going to be dead honest with everybody. If you go back and look at Florida State, Boston College throughout history, especially when we go and play in Boston, it's always a tough game for us. I don't care how down Boston College is or how up they are, whether they're ranked, not ranked, hadn't won a game, or undefeated. For some reason, we always play Boston College tough, especially at Boston College. Um, and then my wife and others could contest for this, I guess, best. I didn't get nervous for anything until we turned the ball over the last time in the squid kick. That's when I got a little bit nervous because of what Boston College was starting to put together. They were starting to make less mistakes, and it seemed like Florida State was just looking to run the clock out. So it felt like we got a little bit conservative at the end.
Yeah, even
Yeah,
at
no doubt. That was
31-22, I thought Florida State was in good shape. Yeah, real quick, George, I'm sorry. Uh, Now, being a guy that's just watching a football game, and again, I'm watching like 3 games and I'm watching other games because I think Florida State's going to take care of business. But the closer that got, the later it got, then I was like all in for the last 7 or 8 minutes of the game. And from a just pure football fan standpoint, you, of course, don't want that face mask to be called at the end of the game. And I'm not saying it was a bad call, it was a good call, it was the right call because you want to see how it's going to play out. BC gets the ball, they only need a field goal. Can they drive it? You want to see the drama. So we didn't get to see the drama, and that was a good thing for you two.
There's no doubt, as a Florida State fan, you were more than happy to take that face mask call. Like Chris said, it was just kind of one of those things. Everything that could go wrong was going wrong for us. It got kind of iffy there, man. But just kind of everything. You got the trap game between Clemson coming off a cupcake, off the high of LSU. You got supposedly people are sick with the flu. You're missing a couple linemen. Your starting safety just went down. You go up 31-10, and it felt like, okay, this is it. We're going to run away with it. But like Chris said, it seemed like they started wanting to just keep that lead and run the clock out. And Boston College wasn't through. Those red bandana games, that whole entire weekend they put together and everything for the red bandana week. It's serious, serious motivation, and in Boston to boot. It's a tough game, and the blowout didn't happen. That critical moment when we went up 31-10, we didn't get the stop. They go down and score, and it just kept snowballing from there. You had the muff squib that Chris mentioned, plus you had, I believe, Toa Philly fumbled on that toss, and they take that for a score. So it was just one of those things that you're just compounding issues that, like, everything that we had to do to keep Boston College in the game, we did. And at the same time, they had like 19 penalties. It was just a hard fought in the trenches, sloppy game, and just happy to come home with a win because that's what championship teams do in that situation. They get the win, and that's what we got.
Yeah, so I'd like to hit you both up on the level of concern, not during the game. The game's over, it's done, it's in the win column, but how much you think that's relevant or real? How much of the struggles, or is it just one of those things? You can go through national championship seasons and you have to go back to like 1995 Nebraska before you find a team that just pasted everyone. Everything was 3 scores or more, and just that was the team that beat Florida 62-24 in the national championship game. Even the 2013 Florida State team, obviously, they cruised until obviously the championship game. Don't know that there was another close one in that whole season. I think that was it. Oh, was it Boston College? Was that a close one?
The other closest game. It was really close at halftime. Jameis hit a touchdown to Kenny Shaw to put us up 3, I believe, going into halftime. And the final ended up being like 44-38 or something, 44-35, something like that. But that was the closest game besides the national championship all year.
And then the next year, even though you reeled off 13 consecutive wins before losing, there were a lot of close, and Boston College was another close one in Tallahassee, right? Yep, I remember that game. So anyway, if you go to championship seat, everybody's playing close games. There's a handful of, and mostly they're against the best teams, but there are those dicey ones against inferior teams, even for teams that competed for national championships. So it's not the end of the world. They survived. It's done, and they need to learn from it. But did you guys see some functional stuff with units not playing well, or things that you're more concerned with lingering and being an issue that has to be addressed?
I will say that I fully expect both of the scenarios of what took place defensively and offensively against Boston College. I fully expect both of those things to have been addressed this week in practice, and that it will not be a factor versus Clemson. But our secondary was extremely mixed up throughout most of this game, especially in the safety position. When it came to where they were lining up, what formation we were running, things like that, that you would see Boston College do this quick huddle break. They would do a huddle, maybe lasted 4.5 seconds, maybe, and they would break and they would all line up to the ball as quick as possible. And you would see some of our Florida State secondary trying to get in their position of place where they were supposed to be. And 9 out of 10 times in that situation, we saw the ball being snapped as our guy is still running far out to cover the wide out, and it caused a lot of confusion. And something Florida State's been not doing particularly well under Coach Adam Fuller, which I'm not saying that it's Adam Fuller's fault, but what we don't do well is bunch formation. Anytime that an offense has their wide receivers in a bunch formation, one of our corners, for some reason, and there's different corners at different times. I specifically named the ones that did it in this game. But for some reason, when they go out to their break, where the one's going out for a post route, the other one's going in for a quick slant, the other one's going into the flat, whatever the case may be. For some reason, we cover everyone that we're supposed to up until they get to the break of their route. Once they get to the break of their route, for some reason, we have two corners follow one guy and the other one goes out completely wide open. In particular, an example of this is when they did the bunch formation on the 3rd and 21, and they were on their 10-yard line. It might have been 3rd and 17, but they were on their 10-yard line, and we got them at 3rd and 17. They do a bunch formation out to the strong side of the field, and Jerrion Jones covers this guy all the way till he gets to the middle linebacker and then lets him go. He starts covering the tight end for absolutely no reason. I have no idea why he broke off the route, but he had the guy completely covered like a blanket until the point of running into the middle linebacker. And I don't mean physically they hit each other. I just mean as soon as he got to middle linebacker, he stopped, backed off, and started following the tight end instead of continuing to follow the gentleman that was his. It was his wide receiver to cover. And then that gentleman ends up catching the football just on the other side of the sticks, and it's a first down, Boston College. So I anticipate that those things will be absolutely monitored and fixed before we go into Clemson, because Clemson's offense has been a little bit off, not relatively to what they expected to be. So I think Clemson is going to look at everything that Florida State did not do well, particularly against all three teams, but really against Boston College, because they seem to give us the most problems. And I think they're going to try to up their tempo in this game. Not that they already don't run a quick tempo, but I think they're really going to try to hurry it up, try to catch us off guard, out of position, stuff like that. But offensively, everyone on the Florida State side is wondering what's going on with Trey Benson or our running game, period. Everyone's kind of confused on why we're not being able to carry the ball like we were last year. I can't speak for LSU game other than that's just a really good defensive line. They did a phenomenal job at run defense. They kept an extra man in the box the majority of the time. But outside of that, when you went and played Southern Miss and also Boston College, we have yet to see Benson break out and have a good game. Well, the case for that reason being is even against Southern Miss, we didn't do it. But those two games, here's what's different about those two games and LSU, and now going to be different for the Clemson game, is you had your starting left tackle and Robert Scott out for both of those games. You had your center Maurice Smith out for both of those games. And it's how long these guys have been playing together. They understand every time they're supposed to do a pull, every time they're supposed to do a formation to the right, block left, block right, pull the center, pull the tackle, blah, blah, blah. Whatever the case may be, these guys know each other like the back of their hands. They know what they're supposed to be doing. They know the snap count. They know exactly what formation's set up to be. They know exactly where the gimp, all of those things that I'm trying to squeeze into a very small portion of me speaking, they know it. Now, I think that Washington, the center, has done a phenomenal job coming in and taking over from Maurice while he's been injured, but he does not know the offensive scheme as well as Maurice does. So it's caused us not to get that counter play that we love so much. The left tackle that's taken over, Bless Harris. Bless is a great – when you put these guys one-on-one with somebody, they block preferably very well. But when they don't understand what they're supposed to do on this play, as far as we're trying to push the offensive line to the right to open this hole up on the end, when we just block straight forward and we keep a guy just dead in front of us, which is blocking, but that would be pass defense. They did very well as far as pass defense, did not allow a sack, did not allow many pressures at all. But the problem is on run offense, we were not blocking in the correct directions to open up the holes for Benson. And I see where fans are like, man, Benson missed that big hole to the left. Well, the problem is, and his playbook tells him where the area of where he's supposed to attack at, and that's to the right short side of the field. That's supposed to be where the hole opens up at, not to the strong side of the field where the big hole is because of a missed assignment. Our offensive lineman missed the assignment, pushed them the wrong way. Benson runs right into somebody. And I think that you're going to see that completely changed against Clemson because not only is Maurice Smith coming back, but so is Robert Scott in the starting left tackle.
Yeah, man.
Anything
no
on
doubt.
the offensive line, George?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I think Maurice Smith is one of these guys, and I've been guilty of it. You know, there's other guys like Kayshawn Sapp that were battling for that center job, and I was kind of pushing for one of those guys, maybe a little bit, you know, somebody to possibly be an upgrade or push him for that position. But you just really see a difference in the offense when he's not on the field. They really missed him these past couple games, and I think that'll be huge, along with if Robert Scott can get back in fixing a lot of the issues with the running game that we've kind of seen the past two games, like Chris alluded to. But also the game plan and the kind of the scheme and the way they played Boston College is going to be a little bit different. Hopefully it's a little bit more man coverage, a little bit more single high safety stuff versus Clemson, and these DBs can kind of man up and just not have as many, responsibilities or, having to worry about passing off too many guys on those bunch sets. Hopefully they can figure something out on that. But besides that, the main thing to me is kind of the X factors, just the issues with traveling to Boston College, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think there's any issues with the ball club as a whole. This is Clemson week. There's not going to be any, issue getting for these guys getting up. If you remember what it looked like coming out of the tunnel to play LSU and how they played in that game, that's more along the lines of what you're going to see at Clemson, but it is at Clemson. It is, we're on a 7-game streak, and I believe 5 at Death Valley. This would be their 5th win if they got it. So it's important for us to break that streak. And, until taken down, they are that quote unquote top dog in the ACC, even if they are with one loss, like you mentioned earlier. And the team's ready. We just got to hope we can get those two guys back and, get the secondary on the same page, and we'll be good to go.
This is an incredible number. Now, Clemson lost a game in the ACC this year. They lost 3 total last year. couple non-conference games, really all non-conference. All non-conference games last year. So they swept through 9 straight in conference last year. Had a down year for them the year before. So they've been on a bit of a run, taking a step back, but still the Louisville game of 2016. And I stumbled upon this and I kind of did my own research once I saw and thought, when was the last time Clemson was an underdog in the ACC? Well, even to take it outside the ACC, like when they played Georgia, the opening game of 21, they were a 3-point favorite that game. The one game that's kind of iffy is the 2016 game against Lamar Jackson in Louisville. They were like a 1-point dog or a 1-point favorite, depending on your book, but it was so close to pick them. It was throw that game away. The last time Clemson was an underdog in the regular season, in conference or out of conference, was 2014 against who. That's the last time they've been an underdog in season. The last time they've been an underdog at all was the 2019 national championship game against LSU.
I know that'll be a big factor when it comes to Florida State side of things, getting Jordan Travis to run for a few first downs and make the defense really respect that on either side to open up that running game and back the safeties up, et cetera, et cetera.
How healthy is Jordan Travis? After that hit he took Saturday, you have to wonder if maybe they don't not run him quite as much, try to protect that shoulder if it's still lingering around a little bit.
Yeah, it was the non-throwing shoulder. I'm sure they're going to be super careful, but as far as any kind of game of the year, the importance level on this one is pretty high. So I imagine they'll run him at least, if I had to say, 5 times at least. The thing is, like, if he's got to take off a Virginia Tech game, like I think Florida State fans think that they could probably win with Tate Rodemaker, if the case needed to be, and only have Jordan Travis in an emergency situation. But yeah, man, that was every Florida State fan's in the country's throat. Heart was in their throat when we seen him go down. But it being that off shoulder and as tough as he is, I don't expect, and from the way Mike Norvell's addressed the media, he's not going to give anything out about injuries. But if you can parse between his words and kind of see how he said it, I don't think there's anything to worry about with Travis as far as that goes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get me wrong. I don't think there's any chance he's not playing or anything. You got to wonder if that thing's still lingering around a little bit. Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't run him quite as much as they otherwise would have. I don't know. It's just something to consider.